I'm Stacy.
And I'm Rachel.
This is Laughing with Loss, a podcast about healing with humor.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show. I'm a hairdresser by day and a professional peopler by night.
Yeah, and I'm a chef by day, but also an emotional support human for Stacy most of the time. I think that should be my real job title.
I agree. I agree.
So what's this show going to be about? Like, why is a chef and a hairdresser sitting in a conference room doing a podcast about loss?
Well, because we've experienced so much loss in a short amount of time that I think we've gained some perspective on what that looks like, finding ways to move on, not burying it, but moving on with a laugh.
Yeah, and I think people are going to assume like, oh yeah, we get it. Everyone's grandparents dies, whatever. But we're not talking normal death here, right? We're talking like boom, 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 like
Correct.
one after another in a short period of time.
Yes.
And I think that's what this episode is going to be great, because people really are going to get to hear your story and what drove you to kind of do this concept.
Right. So also too, it could get weird. There could be lots of tears, lots of snot, but we're just going to go with it.
Yep. There's going to be some like weird voices that come through here.
Yes.
We're going to curse.
Yes. All episodes will contain a solid amount of cursing. So if that's not your thing, this is not the podcast for you.
Don't play this around your children, please. Don't listen to this in the car line.
No.
What is that? Is that called a car line?
No, definitely listen to it in the car line, but like before you pick up your kids, like
as you see them running out,
yes,
put on
because you're going to be in that line at least 30 minutes
for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Easy.
Yes.
All right, so let's start from the beginning if you're okay with that. I kind of want to just get into a little bit about your life and how we got started here. I know, right? You're laughing. You're like, oh God, help us all. So let's go back to the beginning, right? Talk to me about your family and how it was small and really close-knit, and give the people a little bit of background on that.
So I'm an only child, but also a child of three. My father's side, I'm an only child to my father. My sisters and I share the same biological mom. They have their own father. They're 10 and 14 years older than I am. So I'm basically an only child.
Nice.
And very small family. I have no cousins on either side. It was always me, my dad, my mom, and his mom, my aunt, and a grandfather somewhere in there. And
somewhere sprinkled in,
somewhere,
right?
Yeah, it was a step pop, but you
Were
don't
you close
say
with
that.
him?
Oh, so close. He was the best.
Oh, man.
WG.
Oh, not WG.
WG.
W. Okay.
Warren Gilbert. And, we were a tight family, very, very tight family my entire life. And everybody thought I hung the moon and the stars.
Which you still do. She still does, everyone.
A little differently, but I do. So about roughly 10 years ago, everybody just started dying on my father's side. One after another.
Who was the first one?
Carla, my aunt Carla.
Okay, and how did she die?
She had metastatic breast cancer, and they had given her 5 years to live. Somehow she really stretched it out to like the 6th year, almost to the date. It was wild. Super healthy, super educated, super funny, just the best of the best of the best.
Wait, tell people the best part about her.
I mean, what is that?
She was gay.
She was a gay.
Yeah. Bring it home.
And when you're a gay, it makes you
super cool.
Way cool.
Way cool. I think she had a nickname for you, right?
Chicken. Always a chicken.
Is it because you have chicken legs?
I hate you.
You do.
No,
you do. Not. Tiny little ankles.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks
sorry to derail you.
Thanks for that.
See, we're going to throw a little bit of humor in here. We're going to laugh a little bit.
Because it is about the humor.
It's from metastatic breast cancer to chicken legs.
It's the only way we're getting through all of the things.
Okay.
9 weeks later, her mom, my dad's mom, died. So my dad lost his sister and his mother within 9 weeks. So that wipes out his entire side. And then in the middle of that, I lost someone that I had partially secretly dated off and on for roughly a decade. Unfortunately, take her own life during that. So in between that 9 weeks was wild.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
And then it just kept happening. A very close friend of mine passed away, huge accident, just like matter of circumstances, not like a car accident. And then I had a break for a little bit.
How many years was your break, would you say?
I don't know. I'd really have to go back and tick that off.
Can we go back for a minute? And
Totally.
If you don't want to tell the people, I just want to ask, how did your grandmother die?
So she had esophageal cancer, which is absolutely curable, treatable. I don't know about curability, but I'm pretty certain. Okay. Yeah.
Now, I certainly can't spell that cancer, but can you tell me what that
your
is?
Esophagus.
Got it. Like your throat.
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And she had this random venous stroke.
Okay.
It was very strange. She was not supposed to like die, but we're all going to die, but she wasn't supposed to die. She had this random little stroke, was unfortunately found on the ground probably 12 hours after she had fallen. She wasn't responsive. Like her eyes were kind of moving and whatever. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks. My dad was working out of town or out of state.
Stop.
Always.
Where was he working?
We don't know.
We've forgotten that part
Either
of the story.
Jacksonville, Tennessee, PA. We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. And we'll circle back to that for Carla too, because I handled that whole thing until he.
So then, how did you find out about your grandma? Did he call you?
No, I kept calling, and I told my dad I can't get a hold of her.
Right.
So he called somebody in the community, actually that they went to church with since he was a child, and said, "Can you please go check on Mother?"
Yeah.
She found her. Whatever. We go to the hospital. Dad comes home after 2 weeks. Dad's like, we asked the doctor, so if it was your mother, what would you be doing?
Right.
And he said there's this 2 week period within a massive stroke like that. At that 2 weeks kind of tells you what their progress is or isn't going to be. Mm-hmm. So we made that choice to go ahead and take her to hospice house and help her on her way as best we could.
Yeah. And was it a peaceful crossing of the Rainbow Bridge, would you say?
In what way?
Like, did she just fall asleep? Or
I wish. Unfortunately, for that type of cancer, you typically, this is going to sound so extreme, but you typically suffocate in that way. Yeah.
Yikes.
Almost like a drowning kind of suffocating kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, not suffocating.
Yeah,
little suffocating thing. Okay, got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, fun. Mm-hmm. Not fun. Let me take that back. Not
but
fun.
I understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so grandma passes, and then we want to leave out some names. So somebody that you dated on and off for a long time.
Oh no, that Hannah Merritt Gordon. She is the best. HMG.
And I mean, you guys dated for a long time.
But
like,
we did
high
off
school.
and on. Yeah, we did off and on. High school was, I feel like, I don't know. I'd have to ask my friend Allie, I think, if she could even recall. That's not her strong suit, but we dated off and on, and then she went away to college, came back. There were a few times where we were like dating, but also like doing whatever we were doing. I don't know.
Right.
That times that people, I don't know that we would have told.
Okay. And so Hannah was around. And did she know Aunt Carla and Grammy? Is that or Grandma? You called her mother a second ago. So what was
that's what my dad called her. Mother.
Mother. You just tell me what her name is.
Yeah. I don't know that she would have. My dad and Deb for sure. Okay. For sure.
Okay.
Now when I say Deb, and you'll hear me say my Deb mom, not dead, because I do have a dead mom. My mom and dad, my stepmom, mom. I hate saying that because it dilutes the.
I think now you can just say mom.
My mom, yes, but I want to clarify that, so I will clarify it from time to time.
Just have one mom.
So many moms. I'm grateful for both of them. My Deb mom, so my mom and my dad, she knew for sure.
Right.
For sure. But the rest of my family, I don't know so much.
So how long was the period between your grandmother passing
it's like
and Hannah?
Smack dab in the middle.
So you're still grieving from Carla, who was a super big person in your life.
Huge. Oh my God, huge.
Helped raise you, just there for everything. So you're still like in the thick of grief, and then boom, your grandmother dies.
Right.
And are you at this point, shutting down? Are you like crying on the floor all the time? Like, how's your process at this point?
It was really kind of strange because although Carla had metastatic cancer, so you kind of like lived
through that with her for a couple of years,
right?
Yeah,
and honestly, you just watched her die a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
It was really mortifying to watch like someone wither away and just like
I would say watching
die.
Someone have cancer, and we'll touch on that as the end, as the person that's watching someone else have cancer and just a little piece by little piece is dying on them each day. It's so traumatizing.
And you did that with your aunt too.
Yeah.
It is wild because you know the end is near, but you're like, I don't know, but they're fine today.
You're like, I have another day. I'll go next weekend. I'll call tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, there's no tomorrow.
Right. So that really rocked both me and my dad like a lot. Mm-hmm. And then, but then my Grammy, like your grandparents are supposed to die. Like that's what happens. They're supposed to die first, like in this order of passing.
Yeah. Is there an order?
We know now.
I think that there's no order.
We do know now.
There's no rhyme or reason to death out there.
No. So yeah, but that was because we were still dealing with my aunt's law, like that whole thing. It was kind of like.
Because a little bit, I'm assuming with your aunt, you were very upset and very sad, but probably a little relieved to a certain point that she was no longer suffering.
Yeah, but I don't think I processed it like that at that time.
Yeah, of course.
I kind of did, right? Because when you see somebody no longer be themselves, you're like, please, Jesus, take the wheel and let them go home. Mm-hmm.
So how did having, you just experienced the loss of 2 family members, did the loss of Hannah by her taking her own life affect you differently, or did you just see it as...
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah. Kind of talk to me a little bit about how that affected you.
And, I know there are going to be quite a few people listening to this that lived it from a different angle.
Right.
Especially friends along the way that might, we've all lived that same time differently. This is where it gets weird.
Take your time. We'll get the tissues. We've got your dad's funeral tissues.
Yes, in loving memory. They're tacky tissues we had.
Here you go.
From,
we got you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're so
from
welcome.
My father's service. But it was strange, she had her own struggles and her own demons. That again, you're not like relieved that someone's passed away, but it's like a couple friends and I have talked about in that friends group. It was the only way she was going to rest. Right. Which is just fucking awful, but it is what it is. And what I know is like, what I believe is that she's living her best life. Because that's what I choose to believe, right? Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, I know this is like cliche, but to know her was to love her. She was funny and fun, but she just struggled a lot. And that was like heavy.
Yeah. Well, because you had known her whole life in the good parts and the bad parts.
Since high school.
Since high school. Okay.
Yeah, just since high school.
Okay, so then Hannah passes.
Right.
And then keep going, because there's more people. Don't worry, there's more.
It keeps coming. And then my friend Jenna after that.
Mm-hmm. Which Jenna was crazy because we all kind of heard about it in the community.
Not she herself. The situation.
Okay, sorry. The Jenna situation was crazy because we all knew her in the community. And so hearing... I don't know if you want to tell the people that, or maybe that's...
and again, when I tell these stories, this is just from my side, because there are going to be a lot of people out there that are like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, there's some people that were closer to her and stuff like that.
Right. Like
Chelsea.
Yeah, like Chelsea. And God bless her, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't know how I found out. I don't know how
what was the time frame between...
I don't even know.
Okay.
I can't even remember.
Okay.
But she was just like trying to get into her apartment one night. She had forgotten her key and she punched through her window, and
that's crazy.
That is the wildest set of circumstances I can say that I've heard.
Yeah, that's like some crazy movie thing.
It was wild, but it was really cool to see everybody from like different friend groups come together and at her service.
So then after Jenna, did you get a little bit of break, or
I
was
did.
it? Okay.
I did.
And how many years do you think you got?
I have no idea. I'd really have to think about that. I'm sorry, I
didn't prepare your timeline appropriately.
Just know that everything happened within 10 years.
Okay, so within 10 years.
10 years.
Okay, so we get a little bit of break, and I want to pause there for a minute because I think what comes after the break is super heavy. And I want to go back a little bit to your childhood. Like, most people under your circumstances would just break. They would turn to drugs. They would turn to drinking. They would just not be able to process, right? It would have been
easy to do that.
And so
considering it come from addiction, it would have been very easy to do that.
Yeah, and I think, tell the listeners just a little bit about your childhood, and then we'll kind of segue into, what makes you think you're so strong to do all this.
What makes you tick?
Yeah,
not have a tick, but just like
tell the people.
So childhood, my parents separated ish. My biological mom, my dad, when I was 3, legally divorced, I think when I was 4.
Okay. But
like he had already dipped out and whatever. My dad left to get sober. Like I said, I come from a long line of addiction. He was young. I think he was I was 20. He was 25 when I was born, and he got clean. I'd have to think about those dates, but right, like at 30. And I think he actually fibbed to my mom, to Deb, and was like, oh no, I'm 30. So that mom would take him seriously.
Oh, but he was younger.
Oh my God.
Way to go,
Heaven
Eric.
forbid. Way to go, Eric. So my mom, Mary, my biological mom, her addiction was alcohol, and it was like really, really bad. And, I never lived with my eldest sister ever. She's really bad. And I hate that my niece is going to have to hear this like on the podcast, but she hated me from the jump. And when she was around, she made my life hell.
Yeah.
She was awful.
Do you think
bad.
she was just jealous of you?
I don't know. Maybe jealous of the situation. I have no idea.
I mean, you were a super cute kid, so.
And my dad was the best dad.
Yeah. I mean, my older sisters hated me for a little while too, so.
That's true.
I know.
Oh my God, that's true.
Don't make me tell the Barbie doll story.
Oh, you're going to tell them all. Because loss is loss, right? That's the thing, is we're talking about loss of any kind with a ton of humor behind it.
Now, do you talk to your older sister now, or is it still a strained relationship?
No. We don't do that.
Okay.
We don't do that.
We are not there.
We will definitely discuss that too.
Okay.
So yeah, that, and then my good sister. That's what I've always called my middle sister. I know, right? Yeah, totally. She's 10 years older than me. I think I was 6 or 7 when she moved out. So I was just there with my mom, right? And my grandmother moved down to help take care of me with my mom. So it was the 3 of us in a household. And like I said, my mom was a boozer. And I didn't realize.
Good terms thrown out here,
right?
Boozer.
A boozer.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how bad it was because it's your everyday, right?
Right.
But I think who is it? Mowgli from the Jungle Book, right?
Yeah.
Thrown into the jungle. I found a way to keep it going.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you're resilient. Like you just survive things that most people would just not be able to. And it seems like since, I almost said since inception. What the hell does that mean? Since you were a kid, it seems like you've had this sense of fight or flight, and you've always fought your way to survive.
Right. Yeah. But I didn't know anything different. But at the end of the day, when we say like, I didn't have a choice. We always have a choice. One's just a little bit more comfortable or easier than the other. And sometimes you don't realize the harder one is just what you're more capable of doing.
And you also weren't like a perfect kid living in this environment. Like you weren't playing your violin and reading your books. Like you were.
My mother wasn't drunk. I wasn't doing any of that stuff.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you were still being a rebellious little kid.
I was a fun kid.
Ooh, not fun.
I was so fun. I was self-sufficient. I didn't need anyone or anything, kind of like how I am now. But no, I was a pretty good kid.
Yeah.
I definitely got.
So if I interviewed like your teachers from when you were a kid, they would say the same thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. If I interviewed Deb, would she say the same thing?
She would. She would.
Okay.
Except for my 6th grade teacher, but I was just, I was angry. My God, I was angry at the world.
Rightfully so.
Oh, I was angry, but I didn't realize it.
Okay.
Right, because it was your everyday, it creeps up on you. So anyway, Mary, great. So my dad didn't come around for a long time. He'd be like, all right, I'm coming to get you this weekend. And he wouldn't show up.
You'd be like the little kid in the window.
Oh,
like the Sarah McLachlan commercial.
Yeah.
In the arms of the angels.
Yeah, it was like that. I think that was probably the worst thing still I can think of. Like, it wasn't like abandonment because I didn't think about it. It was just I was let down, right?
Yeah, well, it was like rejection, let down, abandonment. I mean, we could therapize you. Let's go on and on.
I think it was just like your best friend saying, we're going to go to dinner and go on vacation. They're like, can't come.
Yeah.
It was like that, right?
Yeah.
So I always revered him as some like imperfectly perfect best friend God. Right.
And then, so how old were you when he finally came back around?
I have no idea.
I
was little.
You were 12.
I was like, well, no, that's when he took custody of me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when he took custody of you, came back,
Right.
and you was like, you're moving in with me and Deb, and then
correct.
the rules started cracking down.
Because I started having seizures. All of a sudden, I have epilepsy. And my dad also had epilepsy, so he knew how big of a deal that was. And my mom got pretty fresh with me one day, and she like kind of rabbit punched me in the back of my head. And I don't know if, well, my dad's not here to say he remembers it or not, or if mom remembers that, but my dad knew how big of a deal it was for me to be fed.
I mean, you have to be on
all the time
routine.
Correct. I had no routine. I needed to sleep, my medication. Someone needed to make sure I was taking it. I was 12. Like, what the hell did I know? And we couldn't even control it in the beginning. It was like awful.
Yeah. Well, because it was like hormone based, right?
Yeah, catamenial. Yep.
Yeah.
So here we are now, right? But Dad and Deb took custody of me, and my mom didn't put up a fight or anything.
Yeah.
But I was totally pissed. And then I move in with Dad and Deb, and it is nothing but rigidness and rules
and contracts.
Fucking contracts and no padded bras and no black eyeliner. It was like awful for a kid my age. But the one thing my dad really did for me is I was in therapy. I almost say every week or every 2 weeks. I can't really remember. With Dr. Kinley from the time I was 12.
Yeah. And you can tell because you're very emotionally mature.
Got it. Yeah. That's good.
Do you like that term?
Yeah.
I'll put that on a t-shirt for you.
Ooh.
Okay.
And thanks to Marissa, I'm still well therapized. And that was hard. Like, I'd gone to public school, these huge public schools, and then I went to this teeny tiny little private school. Like, everybody knows everybody. Everyone's gone to school together. Shout out Academy at the Lakes. I mean, it was a couple of the best years, so let me redeem myself. And that was really hard. And I was angry at the world.
Yeah.
I was just furious at everyone and everything because you just ripped me out of everything I know, dysfunctional or not.
Yeah.
And we were still kind of like trying to figure out my epilepsy. And then I went to Catholic school. We are not Catholic. And I didn't understand a lot of like how things were dealt with, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you hadn't had to like be taught these certain situations. You were fight or flight most of your life. And then you go from having barely any rules to having an insane amount of rules. I mean, it was a complete opposite. Probably huge culture shock for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, huge culture shock.
Yeah. Yes.
So now it's kind of formed you into who you are today. Now let's kind of jump ahead a little bit, right? So you had this break.
Right.
And then it was, I feel like your Grammy or your Aunt Sandy, like what broke the death fast? What broke it?
Forget break fast. It's the death fast.
What broke the death fast?
It was in the height of COVID, and but I think we had gone back to work.
Because I was around then, yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I think it was in May, and my mom calls me, my bio mom at the time, she is always my bio mom, but my bio mom is like, Sandy's gone to the hospital. We can't go be with her.
And Sandy's your mom's sister.
My mom's sister.
Okay.
And she lived in a home, a state-run home for people that have a limited mental capacity.
Yeah.
But she always hadn't, but again, alcoholism, right?
It'll do it to you.
She drank herself there. And so she goes to the hospital. She goes back to her facility. They refuse her. They're like, something's really wrong. She goes back to the hospital, dies alone with sepsis.
Oh,
and
that's so sad.
My mom was beside herself.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Because you can't be with it. You couldn't be with anyone during that time. So many people were dying alone, right?
Right. No funerals, no nothing, no wakes.
No.
Yeah.
We have her upstairs, actually.
She is in the closet. Yes.
She is.
Yes. Were you close with Aunt Sandy?
I wasn't not close.
Yeah.
She moved in with us, I remember, at some point, and lived with her for a good long time. She was always a little different, a little slower, you know. But she was so funny. She did tell me that Santa Claus wasn't real when she was drunk. She was really nasty about that. But, you know, R.I.P. She was very sweet.
R.I.P. Aunt Sandy.
She was sweet. So she started it. The next year, Dad was killed. The following year, my bio mom's mom died. And then Mom just died.
Yeah.
So that's
the progression.
And that's it. And that's like, I'm an orphan.
Right.
Like, we're done.
You're solo bolo.
Done.
Okay. All right. So I want to talk about your father passing, because I think that was, I know, the single most life-altering moment in your life. And when I met Stacy, I mean, her dad was her world. I mean, I was like, I'm never gonna live up to this dude. Like, there was no space in Stacy's world, because Eric was her number one, which was amazing. I never seen a relationship like that. It was, Dad, I love you. When you listen to this, don't worry, I love you. But just their friendship and their, you know, closeness was, they were best friends. You guys were best friends. You were family members, father, daughter. I mean, you guys checked all the boxes. You talked multiple times a day. It was beautiful. It was really awesome to see that. So
also, let's circle back to what Jenny told me after my dad passed away in regards to you and our relationship.
Yeah,
I'm gonna circle back to that.
So I think, and everybody knew your dad, right, in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody loved your dad.
God. Clients that had never met him, just, oh, how's your dad?
Yeah.
Or
because you talked about him all the time.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
Center of my world.
Yeah. So I think Eric dying was life altering for many people, and just seeing that happen to you. So
for sure.
So tell the listeners that story.
Okay. So there will be lots of crying and breathing funny during all of this.
Okay, do it.
So Rachel was actually in the ICU at Tampa General. She had an adverse reaction to the COVID vaccine that, I don't know, are we allowed to say that, or is it like the jab or like the shot?
I don't know. They'll probably edit us. So just say that I had an adverse reaction to something being an injection into my arm.
Injection. A roughly new injection.
During around the time of the year 2020.
Ooh, 2021. So we're at the ICU already, right? And the nurses were so great. Shout out to Tampa General. They allowed me to stay with Rachel longer than I was supposed to, because I think, well, I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Don't get her in trouble.
Okay,
Let's
so
skip past
anyway,
that.
I'm hanging out with Rachel in the room, and divine intervention. No matter who or what it is, the universe, God, anyone that you believe in, I do believe that there's some divine intervention and all that. My mom calls me screaming, "Where are you? Your father, I don't know. He's been in a motorcycle accident. He's dead. I know he's dead." And I was like, oh, okay, let's
Pump the brakes.
She's like, no, you're right. And I was like, all right, where is she? She's like, at Tampa General. I'm like, oh my God, I'm here. So, you know, I take off running.
I mean, you sprinted out of that room.
Sprinted. The adrenaline was like next level. And I get to the front, and I'm like, oh, my dad, he's here, blah, 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 whatever. And they like looking back, retrospect, obviously I should have known what happened, but they had a chaplain meet me. But her badge was
immediately.
turned
The chaplain met you.
Mm-hmm. Had I seen chaplain, I would have known, right?
Ooh. I want to vomit just thinking about it.
I was like, I'm just waiting for my mom. My mom will be here momentarily. And I'm thinking, like, Dad is definitely in a bad way, but like death, not even.
Yeah, because your dad was super healthy. I mean, he could conquer the world. He looked like freaking Superman.
I know. So my mom gets there, and they take us to this like quiet room, right?
Gross.
Again, looking back, the signs, hello. And this doctor comes in, and she's like, he didn't make it. I'm like, what? He didn't make what? Like, what didn't he make?
Like you just could not comprehend.
No.
Like, it was not even in your repertoire that he was going to be dead.
He's not going to die.
Yeah, like he was going to live forever.
You're not going to die. Like, it's fine. We'll die together. Like, I was there. Like, we're dying together.
On the
Don't
same
you leave
day.
me here.
Yeah.
Don't you leave me here with my moms and everybody's. You could not do that to me.
Yeah.
And so, Mom, I'm totally calling you out, and I'm so sorry. I'm not, but just, you know, for comedic relief, I guess. Flailing, and she's looking at me like,
who's looking at you?
Mom's looking at me like, what? Why are
you not flailing?
Like, why are you not freaking out? Because I was just in a next level of shock. There was not enough emotion to provoke an outward Ooh,
You were just like stunned, like couldn't move.
Right. And so remember, I call you, I'm like, he's dead. And you're like, what? So you just start ripping things out.
Oh, I ripped all my IVs out, got dressed. Yes. Nurses were like, you can't leave the ICU. I'm like, I am going down fucking stairs and you can't stop me.
And they put you on like the portable monitor.
Yeah, somebody walked with me.
Yeah. So I at that time, I didn't know how to handle my mom. I didn't know how to console her. I didn't know what to do to help her. I was very incapable of showing up for her in that moment. So I called Lori, best friend Lori. And
Rita Boney.
And they came like rushing over, right? Because that's Lori's bestie too, my father. And we waited to go see him until, you were there. Mike and Lori were there. The doctor had kind of explained to us what happened. I want to circle back to the head injury at some point.
Okay.
But that he had a head injury, wearing a full face mask, helmet, like full everything.
He was an experienced motorcyclist.
Oh yeah.
For sure. He had lots of bikes. He always wore all the gear.
Oh yeah. He was not like weaving in and out of traffic.
No.
So we go back there. I'm sorry. So the doctor tells us what happened. I ask for his head to be covered. And I mean just his head.
And it's amazing in that moment. I don't mean to cut you off, but just so that the listeners can understand your ability to function in an environment that would completely make like Deb crumble into a million pieces. You have this ability, and we always crack and laugh that it's the ADHD, to like thrive in these intensely panic-stricken,
because that's what
doomsday environments.
But that's what I know how to do.
Right,
that's what I was raised to do.
And that goes back to your childhood, right? Like this fight or flight mode. You're always living in this chaos, so that's where you but that's where you can be comfortable, where most people are freaking out.
Right. Okay. And I just felt so bad for my mom because I just could not show up for her, and I know she needed me, but that's why I needed Lori. So yes, keep his head covered. They kept the intubation tube in, which I really needed, because if you would have looked at him, you're like, Eric, let's go.
Right.
So we all go back there, and he's just like dead, and he's like, I don't know how to say it because I'll continue to stutter over it. He was just dead, and but he looked perfect. What we could see, he was perfect. He didn't have bruises. His nails were perfect, which if you are really close to someone and you know their little things, like, oh, they brush their hair to the left or to the right, and you see them in that moment, just to know that their hair is the right way would have been so important to them. And I don't know. It was very strange even then, because we just were staying in there, and it was like.
What's the first thing you remember when you walked in that room? Before you puked.
In the corner in the sink. I don't know. I don't remember. But I could always hear my dad in a part of that hospital room saying, I'm sorry, baby, over and over. And it's one of those things, like, sometimes we tell ourselves things to like believe it, and it'll make ourselves like, it makes you feel better. But because of what I believe, his body was there, his spirit was like, woo, wherever it was, but that's what I could hear him over and over say that.
I feel like his spirit was definitely still in that room, just like in shock of what had happened.
Oh, he was so pissed that he was dead. So let me tell you how he died. So he was out for his leisurely stroll on his motorcycle on a Sunday. That was not his main
mode of transportation.
Correct. And now we only know this based off interviews, like the FHP interviewed people, and this is the only way we know. It's like my dad had a GoPro. Thank God. Maybe he did. Remember? Okay.
I don't think you'd want to watch that.
Side quest. No, I would have never watched it.
Yeah.
So a woman's bumper came off going 70 miles an hour and just took him out.
Did he try to swerve to miss it, right?
We think so. But then, I went down this rabbit hole of police reports, and I'm going to ask the coroner.
You became a private investigator.
And after I read that police report, I knew in that moment I couldn't dig any further, because it like had this, what do you call it? Like, the picture of how like they have to draw.
Oh yeah.
Point of impact and whatever. And it was like, his bike was on one side of the interstate and his body was on the other.
Yeah.
And you just can't help but envision how that probably went.
Right. Well, and at 70 miles an hour on the interstate.
70 miles an hour.
Oof. Oof.
So yeah, that's how that happened.
And when the paramedics found him, I mean, they worked really hard to save him.
Yeah. So the chaplain said that she had never seen a team of like EMS people work so hard to like keep someone alive or try to I don't know. I live in the headspace that he was DOA. I cannot live in the headspace that he was alive trying to go through the shit, because that's like mortifying to think about. But yeah, she said when he came in, EMS was on top of him. Like no one was stopping a chest compression until a doctor could get to him. And she said that the doctor said that they had cut him open to manually massage his heart to try to get him to like come back.
And we found something interesting in figuring that out, right? Is that there's, dependent on how you are health-wise,
right,
can sometimes determine how hard they're going to fight to keep you alive.
Right, because he, I mean, my opinion, if he could have been saved, they would have. He was a prime example of
super
health.
healthy, in shape, not fat at all.
Not fat, and it's not even the weight factor of it. It's just, I mean, you looked at him with the muscle mass, the things like that.
And non-smoker, non-drinker.
No, and not that EMS could tell that, but they could, you know. I don't know how to best say that, because I don't want anything to get confused about what life is.
Yeah, it's not like the paramedics are not saving you if you're
correct.
Your BMI is at a certain level. But I'm just saying. I'm just saying it was interesting to hear that. I think we heard that from a cop or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So then now Eric's gone.
And then I'm gone.
And then you're gone. And then just, I think your light just went out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did. It did. Now we were engaged. And we were getting...
Look, you're going to make me cry.
Supposed to get married a few months later, which was hard, right? That was hard. But you were like, we can cancel the wedding. I'm like, fuck that. My dad would have been like, you need to get over yourself. Like, this is what we're doing. But my friend Jenny made a comment, even when I think about it, not when I even say it out loud, but when I think about it, is she said...
You cry, I cry.
Because there were some huge pivotal moments in this.
I feel like your dad dying could be like its own episode.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But my friend Jenny said to me, I think he felt okay leaving knowing that you had Rachel. And I believe that. Because I'm always able to be myself with you. And so he was probably like, oh yeah, that bitch has got it. She can take care of herself. She's fine.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about like, and I hate this part of the conversation, but you said like I and anybody else in your life would forever be second as long as your dad was alive. So I think that was a huge turning point for our relationship too, because
it wasn't in like a shitty way by any means, but I think I had come from a big family. I was used to everyone being close, you know, so that it wasn't weird to me to see that, but it was also like, yeah, to your point, interesting kind of knowing you would be second chair. I can only imagine. And in retrospect, I get that. And you're 100% right, because... and that's okay. Like, and I was fine with it coming into the relationship. I knew what I was getting myself into. God bless you. Here we are. Yeah. So when Jenny said that, it was like super fucking profound. I mean, and she was doing my hair for the service when she said that. And it was I think there was an audible gasp somewhere in there. And it was interesting coming from Jenny too, because... And who's Jenny? Tell people who Jenny is. Jenny is a sweet little friend of mine that I work with. Okay. And it's interesting because some of my like closest friends are significantly younger than I am. And you know, they all showed up for me during that time, and they all had different things to say that put a lot of shit into perspective. Yeah.
So yeah, that's that.
Okay, so
All right,
moving on.
Dead on a motorcycle.
Because that's gonna be its own episode. It's
Dead
gonna
on
be,
a motorcycle.
Yeah,
We're here now.
that's what we'll name the episode. Okay, great. So then your dad dies.
Right. Grandma Rosemary dies.
Piece of you dies. Everything sucks.
Yeah.
The world blows.
Yeah.
Grandma Rosemary dies.
Aw, sweet little Grandma Rosemary.
Poor little Rosemary.
Oh, she was so cute and little.
Mm-hmm. And then
she's so cute.
After Grandma Rosemary, it's Mary.
Yeah.
Good old Mary.
Good old Mare.
Good
Mare
old
Louise.
Mare. And
yeah.
So Mary is your mom.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like, you guys had a close relationship when you were a kid. It was strained a little bit.
I don't know if it was close. It was just like that natural
like that was
mother-daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like you guys got really close once you had to really start taking care of her.
Yeah.
Which again, this could be its own episode.
Right.
But
and we'll let it be its own episode.
Yeah.
But that was only like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But
it's crazy how you went from not having to know anything about healthcare, anything about none of it, to being someone's caretaker overnight.
Oh my God, parenting your parent, not easy.
Yikes.
Yeah. And it was like really sad, right? My mom was not healthy at all by any means. She was a smoker her entire life and a drinker way, like maybe just as long of a time. I don't really know, but she died of this like awful stroke. Mm-hmm. And it was just really terrible bad. But there were a lot of medical things that happened throughout the years with her, but just that ending was awful and at a very pivotal time.
And you had to make, the hard decision, right? Like it wasn't again, it was not a I died in my sleep kind of thing.
No, we had to,
You had to pull the plug.
Well, there was no plug, but
and why do they say that? Why do they say pull the plug?
Because it depends if you want to be put on life support or not. Like something is down your throat, breathing for you. Like you are literally kept alive by machines. Mary needed help, so she was on a BiPAP, so it was pushing air in. She wasn't intubated, and she was hypothermic, so they had her in that bear hug that heated. It's really kind of cool, right? It's like a sleeping bag thing, but it pumps warm air into
like a
it.
Heated blanket.
Awkward. So she wasn't necessarily being kept alive. Like if we would have pulled that stuff and I didn't ask for the medication to be administered, I don't know, she would have lived a bit,
but suffered.
Yeah, like she wouldn't have been alive. Her body would have been living. So yeah, after talking to the doctor, and I knew I just need somebody to co-sign on I'm doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. We discussed that, and I asked him because I thought it was pretty inhumane to transfer her to like hospice or palliative care. Yeah. So he agreed with me, and I made that choice to do morphine and Ativan and let her go as hopefully as pain-free as she could. Yeah. Yeah.
So again, your mom could be its whole own episode, right? So, which would be fun. Not fun, but you know what I mean? Yep. Why am I so awkward? Just is what it is, right? We don't know. So, okay, you basically are now, unbeknownst to you and unwillingly, a pro in death.
My God. And we'll talk about that too. There's going to be an episode on preparing for your family members to be able to take care of things. Cremation, burial, cleaning things out.
Because it's a process, and you've done it how to do it multiple times.
And
more than anyone I know.
If legally things aren't spelled very clearly out, having to try to execute that is the most daunting task.
Yeah, it seems like you couldn't even begin to figure it out.
No.
So how do you feel that all of these things, one after another, boom, 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 have really changed you and affected you?
I say this, and it maybe I'm justifying, like, oh my God, it's like so dramatic, but I think I really do mean this. It just is. I don't know. I guess I'm just able to deal with it, but I think a huge chunk of me died.
Yeah, I would agree. When your dad died.
But just all together. And then that was like that last atom bomb. Like that, you have a little piece of you has left each time. But yeah, my dad made all of those things seem even heavier cumulatively.
Well, and I feel like when your dad died, there's been points that have happened in our life since your dad passed that you are able to deal with almost like robotically. And when asked about it, you're like, well, the worst thing in my life already happened. So there's that part, right? It's almost like a piece of you died, filled up with stone, and you're kind of just like, what else you got for me?
But
life?
You would say, like, I'm not hardened.
No, definitely not. You're more empathetic. You're like completely understanding.
Right.
Yeah. There's some things I would say that you can completely deal with and are totally normal, and then there's some things that just completely throw you over the edge, and
they're
you
like
freak
nonsense.
out about it. You're like, do I buy the cat wash? I don't understand.
Oh my God. And my friend Leah, the other day at work, I'm like, oh my God. And I don't have the right microphone, and her and her boyfriend Shay are like, Stace, not that big of a deal. I'm like, but it is, because it's something that's in my control, that's completely out of my control, that is going to be executed in the future. And that's too many factors.
Too many factors that you're not able to control.
Too many factors.
You are not a control freak.
But if your arm got cut off right now, I'm here.
In this room.
You have a belt. That is a tourniquet. I am ready.
Okay, got it.
I'm ready.
Okay, now also, you recently had cancer.
Oh.
Just for the cherry on top of the death sundae, you had fucking cancer.
That's neat. That was neat.
Yeah, I feel like that's something you're still processing and kind of working through.
Right. And for the listeners, it really takes me all this loss has really shown me that it takes about 6 months for me to really start grasping the severity of things and really start to process it, right? Because I think after 6 months, like, things have started to calm down. You're getting back into the routine of life just to know how different it actually is.
And you have these moments when you're in that routine where you will just bawl out cry. Because it just has hit you. And you run into these situations where you're just like, it's a Sunday and we're going on a bike ride, and you're just like, all of a sudden you freak out because you're like, my dad just loves bike rides and I can't call him and tell him I'm on a bike ride.
Yeah. Like this whole thing, like not being able to.
I mean, you can't tell anyone about it.
Right. I know. God forbid I have 9,000 people, like they wouldn't be happy for me. Right. But he was always the most proud of me. I mean, I was a crap bag at some point, but he was always like, well, you're the best crap bag. I mean, never, he didn't say that.
Did you call yourself a crap bag?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
That is like from some show or movie. I don't know. Crap bag. Friends?
Tell me you're ADHD without telling me you're ADHD.
Well, we all know I've been unmedicated for a really long time. So
Okay. So we're going back to you. So and you also deal with that with humor, and then you deflect.
That's it. Healing with humor. Okay. You have to have it. If not, you just drown, man. I think that's when we get stuck in really hard, dark places. Yeah. Because it has been shown medically, laughing will change your life. Yeah. Right? And not even like physically. They were like, you burn more.
Yeah, you burn more calories.
Whatever. But mentally, even if it's just a joke about nothing, it's a little healing.
Yeah, of course. It's healing, like, spiritually, mentally, physically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you had this life-altering surgery. They took a piece of your organ out. You had kidney cancer.
But we got in the car accident first. A bad one, not even a good one.
I'm so annoyed about that car accident. But yeah, I know. So we get into this car accident.
Stupid.
A stupid car accident. But honestly, we were grateful that we got into it.
Totally. Divine intervention again.
Divine intervention.
No coincidences.
You felt like you saw your dad when that accident happened.
So weird.
Yeah.
It was weird.
So you get in the so Stacy gets in the accident. We get in the accident. I'm in the passenger seat.
Right.
And she immediately says, as soon as the car's done spinning for the 9th time and we're in oncoming traffic, I just saw my dad's face. Like, isn't that wild? That's crazy.
Right.
And then we find out through the accident that you have cancer. Correct. So I feel like, truthfully, spiritually, that accident had to happen.
Totally.
Otherwise, we would have never found it.
Totally.
We would have woke up and been stage 4. We would have been booked.
For sure. And then there's like, you're going to be sick and the dialysis, blah, blah, blah. And maybe not. We don't know. But yeah, that was wild. It was like, I read my reports and nobody even told me they found the mass.
That was wild.
And it was,
again, it could be its whole own episode.
A mass with these measurements, because it was that clear that they found it had the perfect margins. What is RCC? And it's like, renal cell carcinoma. Mm-hmm. Carcinoma is not fun. Yeah. If you know anything, melanoma, carcinoma, any kind of oma.
Like anything ending in oma. is like not good.
Not good at all. So, side note, you know, I think it's Swedish. They call their grandmothers the Oma. So we're not talking about that. Anyway,
okay.
So moving on.
Okay.
Yeah, like renal cell carcinoma. What the fuck is that? I'm like, wait, maybe it's just a kidney stone. Like
you're like the angry cat meme where you're just like typing away.
And I was like, okay, well, I've got cancer. You're like, no. So what does Rachel do? Takes to TikTok.
I mean, that's where the news is. Let's just be real. That is where the news is.
We learned more about my cancer on TikTok than we did on the interweb.
Yeah. If TikTok had been around in 2020, I mean, COVID would have been over in like a month.
But would it have been?
We don't know.
So anyway, yeah, I Googled that and you're like, no way. And there weren't really any symptoms at all. It's virtually symptomless. And the symptoms are like being alive, being a 40-year-old woman, being alive, having a full-time job, having a fun life.
Yeah.
Fatigue, this, that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I get on the phone that Monday. That was like a Sunday, Saturday or whatever. I was reading that. Got on the phone, and because of my mom's illnesses, I knew, okay, kidney nephrologist, we did it. Before we knew it, we were in a doctor's office. He thought I knew I had cancer. He didn't know that we didn't know.
Oh yeah, that was insane.
And then we told our friends, and our friends were like, no, you got to go to Moffitt.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean we have to go to Moffitt? And our friend Tess, thank God, and her sister Christy were able to get us in right away. 6 weeks later, having the surgery, taking it out, getting it done, taking a hunk of my kidney, thrown it in a trash can, and here we are.
Cancer free.
Whoop de whoop.
Cancer free.
Whoop de whoop.
Whoop de whoop.
Whoop de whoop.
Ayo. All right, cancer free. So we love that.
Okay. Loss.
Yeah, loss. Even part of your kidney you lose, for God's sakes.
I'm losing myself.
Oh, we lost our dog. We can't forget
Han. Buddy. That was tough. It was tough. And because you didn't grow up with pets, you had only lost Woofer. Not only, but you lost Woofer. That was your first dog of 13 years. And then Buddy died.
Yeah. And I think losing an animal will be a whole other episode, but losing Han was so much different than losing Woofer because you were just like, you felt so bad for him. He was so old and so much pain, so much suffering.
The stroller.
We had a stroller for him. Luna had
us. Okay, it was a thing.
Yeah.
Another episode.
Yeah. So you've dealt with all this loss.
Right.
Boom, 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 one after another. What drew you to starting this podcast? I mean, why do you want to talk about it? Why do you want to educate people?
Right. I think because my life has been so interesting, like since conception. And maybe my therapist would agree, right? Like I've had this wild ride, and I feel like there are so many people because what I do, right? I'm a hairdresser. I've been a hairdresser for over 20 years. I have helped people. People have helped me. People feel like they're alone. Meanwhile, I'm like, bruh, I got you.
You're like people's therapist at the time.
Bruh.
I mean, you know secrets about people that
you ain't lying.
That
and you're not going to hear it here.
Their partners know.
You are not going to hear it here. If you are, it's somebody no last name. You know. Yeah, and I just knew I knew my calling was to help people. And also too, being funny. I mean, that's just what I do.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm not going to do a tell-all. I don't like to read, so I'm not going to read. So I don't want to write anything.
You don't want to write a book?
I don't want to do it.
Okay.
Don't want to do it. So I just thought, we were driving down 275 at the Himes exit, like podcast, because we were listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
Because
I love podcasts. I like listening to podcasts.
They're so fun.
Yeah.
If it's not Harry Potter, it's a podcast.
Yeah. You do love that damn Harry Potter book.
Man, that will tie into everything too at some point. Obviously. But I thought that's what I'm going to do. And let me tell you what, I wouldn't have been able to do a tell-all anything if my mom was still alive.
Yeah.
I just think a lot of things would probably make her sad, knowing that a lot of my sadness came from, I hate saying shortcomings, but her shortcomings. And my mom, I always say, my mom only knew what she knew.
Yeah, you used to always say that.
Yeah. Mary was pretty simple-minded, but she knew random shit. Like she knew what the hurricane season was going to be based off the dust storms coming off Africa.
But your mom was so cute. Your mom was like a grandma, like every cute little grandma that bakes you cookies.
Right.
On Christmas, like, that's like what your mom was
if
like.
If she was sad, and then that was it, because she didn't know to process it. Why did it make her sad? She never dived into that. So, that I don't know that I would have been able to do this without restraint. Without restraint. Yeah, something like that, if she was alive.
Yeah. So what, as we kind of move through this podcast, and we're going to interview people, we're going to talk about all different aspects of death and loss, and it's not all going to be about death.
No. And that's it. That's what I want everyone to know as well. This is going to be loss of all kinds. A friend, a pet, self-identity, loss of limb, or... or surviving cancer. Living with terminal cancer. Our parents. Anything you can think of that you could lose, tangibly, intangibly. That's what we're going to do, and really talk about, not that it's funny that it has happened or that it is happening, but finding humor in all that icky dark swamp stuff.
Well, and that human connection, right? Like, there's so many parts and all these things that have happened in your life, and all these things that happen in other people's life, that really it's the moments with your friends and family that someone cracks a joke and you just got done crying your eyes out, and that's what stops you from crying. You're like, okay, fine, I need to get off the floor now, and
or laughing through the snot, just laughing at whatever, because you have snot. I don't really know, but
because
humor and everything.
Humans do have snot. Yes.
They do, actually. I think I'm having a fit.
And
here.
I think the thing too that's important about this podcast is we're not, by no means are we grief counselors. We're not therapists. We're not doctors. I mean, I'm a chef and a hairdresser, and we're out here talking about loss, right? And so it's just like two regular people that have happened to experience an insane amount of fuckery in a short amount of time and have processed it. And I think that that's what most of society is. They're just regular people every day trying to get by, dealing with shit, and trying to find a way to cope with it, right? And a way to laugh through it.
Right. And too, just like not, maybe not knowing a lot about therapy or what that looks like, different types of therapy, and that it's okay. And if you're not good with that, listen to a podcast like this. Find a friend that's been through the ringer, journal it, whatever. Also, like, I'll give you permission to laugh through anything, through the hardest time. So that's it. I want listeners to be able to say, like, damn, I got something from that. Or like, she mentioned this. Let me see how that could maybe help me.
Yeah. Or like your dog just died and you listen to the episode about the dog dying and you cry, but then you also laugh. And then you're like, God, I needed that,
Yeah. And we'll talk about not stuffing down the vomit.
Yeah. The vomit of grief.
Yes.
not actual vomit.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I think your story is the most interesting of it all, right? And I think it's important for people to know and understand, because you're really the star of the show, the myth, the legend. So, if you could say anything to the listeners before we kind of sign off about the podcast, what would it be?
Oh, God. That could be very long-winded. But I think maybe somehow being able to relate to something, to find a joke, not even a joke, just something to laugh at. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's like such a big open-ended question. Maybe you just get a laugh from this. Yeah. And to know that this podcast will be about zero theoretical knowledge. That this is all lived in, lived with, lived through, because reality is we're going to live through it.
Yeah. And in a world and society that is constantly trying to sell you something, get you to buy something, get you to learn something, get you to subscribe to something, yada, yada, yada. It's just two regular people talking about their experiences, interviewing other people that are regular people about their experiences.
Correct.
And you either like us or you don't.
But how could you not?
Hey. All right. I think that's a wrap.
All right.
Cool.